Some of the common misunderstanding in the bullion industry, well, one is that all risk insurance means that all risk is covered, which is not what it means. Another one is that the concept of ownership. Another sort of misconception in the industry is that idea of secrecy. If you're operating a vault, the thinking is nobody is supposed to come and see the vault because it's a security issue. So some of the biggest shortcoming when it comes to the bullion industry is the storage of bullion. One of it is insurance. When you talk with somebody who's trying to convince you to store somewhere, oftentimes they will tell you, don't worry, you have all risk insurance. But all risk insurance is a technical term. It doesn't mean that all your risks are covered. It just means that all risk is covered unless it's excluded. And so for you to be able to evaluate an insurance policy, you have to look at the list of exclusions. The three things that you should normally look out for is that theft is covered, which is covered in almost all cases, third-party theft. But the next question is infidelity covered? And infidelity essentially covers against inside jobs inside the company. And the most important of all these coverages is mysterious disappearance, because mysterious disappearance will cover any other reason that something goes missing. A good way to explain it is if, for example, you have an inside job, right, and somebody steals a bar of gold, you only know it's an inside job if you can figure out who stole it and why and how. But if you cannot figure that out, it's not an inside job. It's a mysterious disappearance. Now, from an insurance perspective, if you have an outside theft or you have an inside sort of theft and you will get a police report, and that police report is the basis on which an insurance company can pay out on a claim. But if you don't know what happened, and if you're calling the police and said, geez, I thought I had 100 bars of gold, but now I only have 99, what happened, and you cannot explain it, what is the police going to do? Right? It's too bad for you, because maybe you didn't count your gold bars correctly. Maybe the shipment was only 99 bars, and you signed a piece of paper saying that you received 100 bars. So should the insurance pay for your mistake? And the answer is, if mysterious disappearance is covered, the answer is yes, they have to pay. If mysterious disappearance is not covered, the answer is no, they don't have to pay. If something goes missing and we don't know what happened, it's mysterious disappearance. So mysterious disappearance really, to me, is the ultimate sort of insurance. It is not easy to get because you have to convince the insurance company to trust you implicitly, that no matter what happens, the insurance company will pay for it. And that kind of coverage is not common in the industry. And it is what we worked very hard to be able to achieve. We achieved it because my background is also software development, and essentially we build a system where when we have a deposit, that deposit is split into 11 tickets, which is split between 3 functional groups within the vault with a lot of check and balances. And when an insurance company comes, they would normally send a species inspector, which is a person who's very well versed with security, to essentially look at our processes, understand our systems, and that's when you get evaluation and a security evaluation on how well the security of your vault is. And we always got the highest rankings when we had these sort of inspections. And because of that, we were able to get mysterious disappearance, and eventually we were able to lower insurance rates and get to where we are today, where we have a very powerful insurance at a very reasonable rate, and we can pass that along to our customers. But it took over a decade to build that up. Ownership can be defined in different ways, and it's misused so much in the industry. The way I like to define ownership is in a very narrow way, which essentially means that if it's on somebody else's balance sheet, it's not yours. Now, you could argue that you own a proportion and so on and so on, and there are legal definitions, so on, which might still allow you to call it ownership, but on a very strict sense, ownership means that it's got to be sold to you in your name, and it should not be on the balance sheet of anybody else. It goes back to that, famous saying in the bullion industry: if you can't touch it, you don't own it. And I very much agree to it. But I will revise a little bit to say if it's on somebody else's balance sheet, it's not yours. But if it's yours, it was sold to you with an invoice, and you have somebody else as an agent who stores it for you, it is still yours, because it cannot be defaulted upon. It can be stolen, but it cannot be defaulted upon. And of course, we have insurance, to pay if it's being stolen. But so ownership is something which is a big issue, and the way it's being misused, because people, are made to believe that when they put money in the bank, they own the money in the bank. They don't. They're unsecured creditors, and yet there is that belief. So that's one of the biggest sort of issues, which people would only sort of get to find out when it's too late, oftentimes. Another sort of misconception in the industry is that idea of secrecy. If you're operating a vault, the thinking is nobody is supposed to come and see the vault because it's a security issue. Now, I've spent a lot of time developing systems that are in compliance with insurance companies, which are insuring, right, in our case now, $800 million worth of gold and silver, any one loss, including mysterious disappearance. So these insurance companies are putting a lot of trust into the systems we built to keep this gold and silver safe. And I asked the species inspectors, the people from the insurance, can I show people the gold? Is there a reason why I cannot? And the answer was no. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to show this, because you have all the other security measurements. So why do vaults, go out there and tell people we cannot show you the gold because of security? And there might be a few countries like Colombia where indeed it's so dangerous for anybody to have sort of assets and running around because criminality said indeed it might be a problem. But in a country like Singapore, there's no reason to sort of try and hide where your gold and silver is. Anybody who wants to find out can easily find out. And the way you find out is anywhere in the world, you go to the airport and you wait for the Brinks truck and you follow the Brinks truck and see where it goes. And then you know where a vault is. So if you want to find out, you can always find out. A government always knows where your gold and silver is because you have to declare it on your customs import. Right? So there's no way to really hide your gold and silver in a commercial vault. A government in a military installation, they can hide it. But as a commercial vault, there's no way of hiding it. Why would a company go to a reporter and blindfold the reporter and drive them in a circle 15 times and then brings them to a vault and shows them, the gold? Why go through all of it? Well, it's a marketing play. The reporter will be now so impressed by what happened to her to say that the vault is so safe. I had to be blindfolded to see it. But in actual practice, has very little to do with security. It has a lot to do with showmanship. But there's a real problem with, this security by obscurity. The problem is a lack of transparency. If you start from the premise that your gold is not safe if you show it to anybody, then you're also saying, I'm not going to show anybody the gold which I'm supposed to have. And if you're supposed to be storing 5 tons of gold and nobody ever comes and checks it, then what if you don't have 5 tons of gold? What if you only have 5 kilos of gold because the other gold has been rented or leased to somebody else? Now, that's the real problem we are facing in our industry. It's a lack of transparency. And so this misconception that a vault has to be hidden from people is actually feeding this lack of transparency. It's making the industry less secure. And these are one of the things that I think we are trying to combat by saying, we are building a vault. Here it is, because there's no reason to hide it. And so I think that the public should be demanding to have as much transparency as possible, and they should be able to see where the gold is. And it might not be feasible for everybody to walk into a vault and see where it is, but there should be a way of having regular audits, or for you to do surprise audits where your gold is. And we are allowing for all of these things. Why shouldn't you?